Welcome to Saturday, NBA and MMA. We're going to go over the NBA slate for a little bit, and we're also going to kind of put a finishing touch on this MMA card, which has been very, very difficult one to analyze all week long, and it's been made even harder um, given some recent line movement in the Spivak Lewis fight, which we kind of have to talk about a little bit. So I'll give a minute for people to get here. Golf is sort of, I don't want to say falling apart because it's hard to say because the day is the day has been cut short due to weather, so they're going to finish it up. But some of my guys that were playing easy courses have been playing difficult courses today, and it's kind of evening out a little bit. So we're not going to be winning all the cheese going into day 4, I don't imagine. But we'll have a couple of hopefully a couple of 6-for-6s going through that are in the top 100. We'll see what happens. But I think the first thing I want to do is talk about what are we going to do first? We'll do the MMA first, and then we'll do NBA. I'm really just going to talk through the MMA because it's a really, really challenging card. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to share the best fight odds page. So it's only 12 fights. So if you're playing the big lottery, it's not as important to get the big upside of the underdogs as it is just to get wins. And it's important to remember that because, when you go through these fighters, especially these underdogs, there isn't a lot to go on. In other words, there aren't a lot with a lot of finishing upside. Like, for example, let's take some of the ones that seem to make sense. Like Tululian here is 7,500, 7,600 or something. And even him, his inside the distance prop is plus 400 or something, which is really not that great. And then you have some of these other underdogs like Xiang Juk Choi. His inside the distance prop is almost non-existent. It's like plus 800 or something like that. And then you have some of these others like Yi Jia, and he has a terrible inside the distance prop as well. Like plus, 400 or something like that. We'll get to the Jubilee fight in a minute. And then other underdogs like Fugit, he just had terrible win odds, and he doesn't have that great of an inside the distance prop. Even if he does win, it's like plus 600 or something like that. The guys you're looking at are like Kyle Nelson in a ridiculous fight. Both guys just have coming off layoffs and whatever. I guess Nelson plus 300 is kind of like the closest thing to an underdog with a decent inside the distance prop, with the exception of, and we'll get to this, not the heavyweight fight, not the Clark fight. Look at Clark. Clark inside the distance is plus a 700 or something. But the one that's the obvious one you would think is Derek Lewis, right? Because every time that he wins, he knocks the dude out, and he's 7,400. But then you look at it, his inside the distance prop is now only like plus 300. And the reason for that is in the last 24 hours, the money line on Spivak Lewis has gone from like minus 210 to minus 300 in one day. People have told me that's not that big a deal, but I don't know, man. That seems like quite a big deal. And maybe I'm just being jaded or a little bit biased from what's been going on in MMA in the last year or so, but there have been these big line movements, and every time there's been these big line movements, the guy against whom the line moved was just either hurt or quit or something, and you have the other part of this is that these guys were supposed to fight before, and that fight got canceled post-lock. So it's very difficult to play Lewis given that line movement, right? At best, his inside the distance prop even isn't that great anymore. At worst, he's dead money. But then you think about this is there's also a non-zero possibility that that big line movement was indicative of some injury that we don't know about that leaked, which could either be resulting in him just putting out a terrible effort and losing, or God help us, the fight gets canceled again post-lock, which would, of course, be particularly ironic given the fact that this is the first week back from late swap. People were begging for no more late swap, and the first day back, you have a 4 a.m. fight that could get knocked out post lock. So it's a very interesting decision of what to do with it. I think it would be kind of irresponsible for me to not at least get less exposure to Lewis. I'm just considering whether I should just be fading this fight more, because if you do fade it and it does cancel, I mean, boy, oh boy, I mean, that's 70% ownership down the drain, right? I mean, Spivak's going to be 40 and Lewis is probably going to be 30 on this card. So if you do get that post-fight lock, I mean, it's not going to happen too often, but when it does, if you fade this fight, boy, oh boy, that's a big deal. So don't know exactly what to do with that. So here are a couple of things. First of all, just as like my last takes here. So I'm not going to be playing any Aguiar. It just doesn't make any sense to play a plus 800. Tyra at 9,600. I mean, it's tough to get there, but he's one of those guys that has a really good inside the distance prop and takedown upside, so he's going to be in my pool. The Tulian Park fight, I'm getting a decent amount of both these guys. As I mentioned, Tulian's kind of a decent enough underdog. And again, you're looking for wins, so this plus 180 is probably what you want. That's all you can really ask for. And he does have some upside, so he's fine. I flirted with the idea of playing Mandy Baum just to be contrarian, but I only have a few lineups with her. Just not doing it. Her inside the distance prop just doesn't exist on a card like this. Ji Young Kim is an interesting one because she doesn't really have a lot of knockout upside per se, but Mandy Baum gets in these wars where she just goes back and forth, and even though she's durable, I mean, Ji Young Kim just came off a fight with Cachoeira where they just kind of slugged it out, and she has a lot of volume. So you might remember in the last like 2 weeks ago, the last fight card, the two winning scores, neither of them involved either a finish or a takedown. It was just a high volume beatdown, and who knows? Maybe Kim at a very low owned play might actually be good. So she's going to be in there. The Park Choi thing. Okay, so while Choi, I'll tell you why, Jamie, in a second. The Choi play is interesting because again, we are just looking for wins, so he's an important play because he's only $1.60. The other thing is that even though he doesn't have finishing upside, he does have win condition upside. In other words, if he wins, it's probably going to be because he can get takedowns, and so I do think that he's kind of a decent low-owned underdog as well. I'm not going to play Kazama, just plus 350. There's no need to. Nakamura, obviously, he's got big upside, both sides, so he's a good play. The other underdog that I want to kind of get to is the Yi Jia. I mean, he is another kind of like Choi in that he's got some takedown upside. But in addition to that, Jia actually has a little bit of inside the distance. I mean, plus 375. That's like not that bad when you put the takedown upside on top of it. So Jia is probably one of my highest owned underdogs. So Jubilee Saraji, I think this fight you're just going to have to get on a card like this. I mean, it's the 8,000 fight. Saraji has some line value because he's being priced as the underdog at 8K, and he's a minus 135. So, and he also has, I think, more KO upside. Like you look at the inside the distance prop here, you have Saraji is inside the distance is much better. He's about minus 160 or plus 160, where Jubilee's plus 320. So I think Saraji is definitely, from the math, like the best play. So in cash, that he's the better play. But as far as GPPs go, Jubilee has some takedown upside as well. So even though you're getting bad line value with Jubilee and not the same inside the distance prop, I do think as a GPP play, he's just as good as Sergi. So I'm probably going to get equal both. Fugit, again, he's just a guy that, doesn't have a good inside the distance prop at all. Plus 500 or something. If he just happens to luck into a win, it might be good enough. So I'm going to play him pretty like the same as Mandy Baum, like maybe 5%, 6%. Like if you're playing like 10, 20 lives, you just can't play guys like this. But Nelson, as I alluded to earlier, I mean, he's a very, very good play. I mean, he's good in the fact that he at least has some inside the distance. He's got like plus 300, which isn't bad against a guy off a 3-year layoff. So this is obviously a play you have to make. Even off Tybura, I'm kind of a sucker for this one. I had to force this in. I was going to end up almost with 0 of this fight, but I just kind of like Tybura. I like the way that he fought back against Romanov. He was getting the crap beat out of him last time they fought. A 10-8 round, and I thought he was dead, and he just came back somehow against a monster. So and Ivanov's kind of on the decline. So I just think Tybura is probably going to win. So since you need some win odds, win equity, I put him in like 20%. Jung Clark, this is the one I feel the least comfortable with, but I just did it anyway. Jung does have a really good inside the distance prop here. It's about, what is it, about a pick 'em? Jung inside the distance, yeah, about a pick 'em. So he's obviously a good GPP play here. The Clark, like, I think I should have more of him, okay? Because he does have experience, and if he gets some good clench and some good takedowns and good whatever, I think that he could eke out a decision. But the problem is that this is exactly the type of guy the UFC is not going to give a decision to. He's older, and I'm going to get to your question of why the event's starting so late to end, because I think these go hand in hand. So I do think Jung is probably the side here, and I'm not getting much of Devin Clark. And I already talked about about Lewis and Spivak. I literally don't know what to do. You probably should play mostly Spivak, if not, I would not get 100% of the fight. I just wouldn't. I mean, it's possible this fight doesn't go. And if it doesn't go, you just, you want to have some exposure elsewhere. And it's not like this fight's a lock. I mean, it used to be a lock. Like, I think if Lewis was plus 200, it'd probably be a lock, because that means, there's enough of a chance that you know what I mean, that it's all whoever wins kind of like not only makes the opto, but it happens enough of the time. I think Lewis going down to plus 300, I mean, it doesn't win all that often, So I would play probably 50 Spivak, maybe 20 Lewis and 30 Fade. Does that make sense? That's all right. So to answer your question, Jamie, the reason why this is starting so late, so this fight was this card was originally scheduled for South Korea, because they had this series called Road to the UFC, which is fought through to promote all the Korean and Chinese fighters. That's why you have all these guys kind of fighting one after another. This is the finals of that series. The Park Choi, Nakamura, like all these guys fighting. So instead of having it in South Korea, what they did is they moved it to Vegas. But just to make sure that the fans from South Korea could watch it, they just made it a late start time to better suit them. And again, listen, for one card, I get it. I get it from a marketing perspective, and that is why that they did that. So that's the breakdown. You can fire some questions off about this, but that's pretty much as comprehensive a breakdown as I'm going to be able to get. Now, okay, so with respect to basketball tonight, first of all, I apologize about the sheets. Something happened with the sheets yesterday that they didn't get published. I don't know why, but they should be up now. Well, I'm going to show you what I have here, and it's a really easy slate, provided there's one bit of information that is still pending. Okay, let's talk about that first. Okay, the news that is pending is Nikola Jokic. Okay, Nikola Jokic, I believe, is a legit questionable for his game. He has a back-to-back. And since he's had hamstring issues, it's very possible they do rest him at least one of these games. So it is very possible they do rest Jokic. In addition to that, in that game, you have Trae Young, who came out with questionable due to related illness or something like not non-COVID illness. So this is, I mean, needless to say, that information for both sides is very huge, right? So if you are going to play this slate, you have to be, and you want to just make room for that late game, you're going to have to, you have to be around. You have to be around to deal with that. However, there are some great plays that make the slate really easy in the absence of that news, and it's all driven by the fact that well, a couple of things. Number one, Kyle Lowry's out, but also Luka is out. So with Luka being out, if you see the way I rank these guys, there is some like really, you have Dallas value. It's really strong, and we're going to go over that. And there's also some other really, really strong value on this slate. You have, 10 guys over, above 6X. And that includes Josh Green from Dallas, Tim Hardaway from Dallas, Powell, and then you go down a little bit, Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith, and with Luka out, I mean that's just really what you're going to get. In addition to that, in addition to Gabe Vincent, you have Strus, and then the regular Miami guys. Butler, Adebayo, and Hero. Those are all pretty good plays. Some other good values remain in that Portland game with with Nurkic remaining out. They didn't make any salary adjustments to either Trendon Watford or Drew Eubanks. So at $3K and $3,600, both of those are extremely good values. Okay. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but Dinwiddie, I mean, is just the best overall play on the slate. I mean, I'm probably locking him. So, okay. So now that you know this, like, what do you do with this? I could tell it's not going to take a genius to figure out what to do here. You play Dinwiddie, you play a couple of Dallases, maybe you play Gabe Vincent, and then you could spend up for whatever you want. You want to play Butler, you want to play Hero from that game, you want to play Giannis or whatever it is. I just went over all of this, Jamie, like for a full 15 minutes. That's one of the things I'm worried about in that fight. So that's what you could do. You could play Dinwiddie, you could play Adebayo, Butler, and the good thing about that is you can run that back with Giannis, right? And just kind of, that's okay, and just kind of be done with it. But the question is what do you do in a situation like that if Jokic is ruled out? If you play all these other guys and you ignore that Denver game, you're just what you're doing. I don't think this is that bad. You're just betting on the fact that Dallas, Miami, and Houston value, because Houston's got Christopher. You're just betting that value is just going to be better than the Jokic value, than the Denver value if that happens. Okay, you're betting that Dallas value as is better than the Hawks value if that should happen. So you can play this. It's not one of those slates where you can't play. If you're not going to be around, you can just go ahead and play the Dallas and the Miamis and all this stuff and get good value in there. Is that going to be better value than the Denvers? I don't know. It is possible. I mean, it is very possible. So it's not as if, oh God, I played these guys and now I'm not going to get to play Michael Porter Jr. or Najee or who's out for Atlanta. DeJounte Murray. Yeah, DeJounte Murray is going to be a good play. If Trey is out, is he going to be a better play than Spencer Dinwiddie? I don't think so. So the only thing is that if you did have access to that information, you'd probably want to play both of them. Right? That's the only thing. So you can play lineups with, without these Denver guys and just hope that this just doesn't beat you, right? The other thing you could do is play Jokic and hope he plays. That's possible. And then if he's out, then you could just kind of finagle around there, because if he does play, he's going to be a strong play, because think about this. If he has a hamstring issue that they say they might not play back-to-backs, then probably the one game he does play, he's going to get full run. So I think that if he's in, he's going to be playing his full minutes. If he's out, he's out, and then he won't play. No, plays full minutes tomorrow. So those are your real decisions. Is whether to just, if you believe in the Dallas, Miami, Houston stuff, just to go ahead and play it and just don't worry about what happens in Denver. Or if you're just a little worried, then maybe hold off on committing to all that stuff. Maybe play something like Jamal Murray, right? Because Jamal Murray is probably an okay play regardless. And then if in fact Murray's out, he becomes a great play. Another thing, by the way, that could emerge from that pull this out for a second, from that Denver game, with the exception of Jokic, is Aaron Gordon. So Aaron Gordon, I believe, was questionable. Yeah, he sat out Thursday due to an ankle sprain. So if he is out as well, or in place of him, then not only does Michael Porter Jr. become a good play, but now we have Bruce Brown could emerge at 4,700. You know, so this is another thing to look at. And it's more news that's going to be dependent on this 9 o'clock game. Now you do have a little bit of time because the Dallas game does not start until 8:30. So it's possible they release this Denver news just in time. So if you're around at 8:15, it could be kind of a hairy 15 minutes. Listen, normally I would say, listen, if you're going to play tonight, make sure you leave room for the Denver game just in case. I think it's possible that you don't have to. Okay. The only problem is if you play Jokic, then you do have to be around, right? What I'm saying is if you could full fade Jokic and just be kind of, and just not play any of the Denver Atlanta game. Hope that if Jokic does play, he doesn't smash, and hope that if he doesn't play, then the rest of the guys don't smash. So you can do that too. You could full fade the Atlanta Denver game and just hope that your Dallas Miami value is just better. It depends on how much time you want to commit. I guess that's the bottom line here. Any questions? To that point, what I think I'm going to do is I'm probably just going to fade the Denver game just for fun. Just put a number up and challenge the Denver guys to come and get me. Unless, of course, you get some news, whatever. Yeah, I don't mind Struss and Vincent together. I don't mind that too much. Not the greatest though. I mean, I'm not going to play 4 guys in one team though. I mean, so if you want to play 3, like Struss, Vincent, and Hero, Struss, Vincent, and Hero is kind of rough because they're all kind of like are competing for shots. But you want to play Struss, Vincent, and Bam, or Struss, Vincent, and Butler, I think that's okay. So I don't think that's too bad. And wait, you also have now you have Clay as questionable too. Yeah, so this is it's become pretty ornery. But I don't know. I mean, for me, it's kind of listen. I'll tell you who I like. I like Dinwiddie. I like Hardaway. I think those guys are going to be really, really good plays, regardless of who's out in Denver, regardless of who's out. And I think the Miami-Milwaukee game, I know Bobby would kill me with this because I know what he's going to say. Like, Giannis is just terrible against Miami, like, all the time. But I don't know. I think I want to stack this up a little bit. I want to play Giannis to have a good game, play the Miami guys too, and just kind of roll with it. That's just my opinion there. And I do like those 2 Portland guys, like the Watford and the other one. My opinion on Kyrie Irving's next team, beats me. I have no idea. I guess that's pretty much all I have. I'll probably be around later to sweat this MMA stuff. I'll be posting in the Discord how I'm doing in that. And I guess I'm going to scoot. Good luck, everybody.